it's like a dream come true, this collaboration, this availability, this interest, this inquiry that we're doing together. It's a dream come true. And we were able to screen this film several weeks ago. Becca and I only met a couple of months ago, and it was like that instant attraction, yes. Because what an opportunity, what an intention that our new owners, Ben and Becca, have for this theater. It's an extraordinary opportunity for our community. So I was able to screen the film, and I was blown out of the water, and I know that you will be too. And my biggest advice to you as you watch this, just don't expect anything. Open your heart, open your mind, and you will be transformed. So I wanted to talk for just a minute. I'm not going to take a lot of time at all about art and activism. And as I'm looking at that subject, and it's been on my mind for 25 years, it's so difficult to talk about. But when I watched this film, and then I went on to MSNBC, and their tagline for it was, "Can art change the world?" It happens to also be the name of the nonprofit of the artist behind this film, JR. Can art change the world? And that was the line, besides art and activism, that I really began to ruminate on. And I have 3 very short stories about that, because to me, Can Art Change the World is personal, it's collective, and it's global. So the personal story that I have is that a couple of weeks ago, my husband and I went to the MFA and saw Fabric of a Nation, which is basically a protest quilt show. And in it, I found one artist. For some reason, I just locked in on her quilt, and it was called How Many More? A very white, stark quilt, and around the center of it were machine guns quilted in How Many More? I reached out to the woman, and she happens to be, she is the president of, I think it's Quilters of Color in New York City. We had a Zoom the other day. She told me all about her work. She's coming to PEG in March. She's our launch. So she showed me all of these quilts, and she described her process. She's going to do a workshop for us too. Her process is very personal. Her quilts are very personal. But because she dives deep into her own process, then her personal process becomes our learning experience. She sits with current event newspapers in her studio, and she lets it happen to her. And then she begins to work, and her quilts are absolutely amazing. So that was one example that I wanted to give you of how the personal can convert into something that all of us can be changed by. If you see the show, and you'll come and see it in March, her particular quilts, each one is like, you must stop, you must open your heart, you must begin to understand the bigger picture of how art can describe and transform. The second story that I wanted to tell you about was a writer named Emily Rabateau wrote an essay called Know Your Rights, and it's in a book called The Fire This Time, edited by Jesmyn Ward. It's a group of black and brown voices, contemporary voices about the black experience in America. Her essay, Know Your Rights, is about a group of murals. There were 4 that were commissioned by, and this is important, the People's Justice for Community Control and Police Accountability in New York City. There were 4 murals in 4 boroughs. They decided not to put it in Staten Island because there was so much police presence there, they felt like it would just be destroyed. She found all the murals. They're not easy to find, some of them, but she found them all. And what she described in her essay was the power of the visual image. It elevates people in the community, even as she described, the Black Lives Matter movement is one of mourning. It's about mourning what we have done to black people and continue to do. The images on these murals raise people up with their strength, but they also educate, and that is the collective transformation of art, in my opinion. So, on each mural, there are a list of people in that community, what you do if a police person approaches you in an aggressive way. Literally a list. Write down the badge number and the name of the policeman. Record your injuries if you have injuries. Seek medical attention. Photograph your injuries. You don't have to answer a police person. Ask the question, am I being detained or am I free to go? So imagine walking by, and each mural she photographed, she waited until a person was walking by, and then she described what she imagined that person was thinking about as they walked by. Imagine that we lived in a neighborhood or in a community that had police brutality, and we witnessed it on the walls like that, and we saw ways that we don't have to take that anymore. That is art in transformation of collective consciousness to me. And then the third thing I wanted to mention was us, because we are important in this equation. We have beautiful, beautiful art along the rail trail. We have gorgeous art. We amplify and celebrate the beauty that we are surrounded by. But I want to invite you to look at communities that are immediately adjacent to us. Lawrence, Lowell, Salem, Gloucester. Those cities and communities have made commitments of finance, of municipal workers, of their entire government system to support the beautification of those communities. And by beautification, it does not mean just pretty pictures. It means telling the truth about our communities, raising up our culture, identifying challenges. And maybe Newburyport doesn't have any freaking challenges. I don't agree with that. What I'd really like to call to action from all of us is, let's tell our story a little deeper. And what I propose with public art here in this community is to create public art that affirms the diversity that we want to see in our communities. We aren't diverse yet, but maybe with public art and recognition and raising up that voice, we can bring more and more of it and eliminate our white apathy. And that's really the transformational power of art, isn't it? So, can art change the world? It was like in every single way. And my last thing is that we would love to have you come back to the gallery, which is right around the corner after the film, because we are unveiling our first public art murals. Alex Bryan from Elevated Thought is here, who was the mastermind behind converting your community art projects of Lost and Found into 2 murals. It makes me verklempt. They're gorgeous. They're going to be in our windows. Today they're inside because the weather is so iffy, but they will be on the outside. And then I'll be talking to George Vinan about maybe finding a place for them on the rail trail. So we have a short reception. We want to unveil these beautiful murals. And the final thing is that we are launching our 4th community art project called The Alchemy of Grief, which starts in January. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you.